Hello everybody, I'm Avian and we are going through how to make a Stardew Valley mod using my garden cottage mod as an example. Today we are going to go over something that's not a specific set, like it's not a schedule or animation where it's one specific thing, but it's something that is used periodically throughout your code and that I would like you all to understand the concept of because it's going to be immensely helpful. We're going to go over conditions and when statements. So these are the things that let you say, when this thing has happened, then I want my mod or my characters to do this. So you see it in vanilla, for example, after you build the community center and the character schedules changes. So when, for example, in the luau, if you have a good result, then people's heart levels go up by so many points. If you have an excellent result, it goes up by more. If you do something like throw Lewis's shorts in the soup, people's heart levels drop. This is done with conditional and or when statements. Now the when statement is something that's set up by Content Patcher, but conditionals are in the main game code. So I'm going to go through both Content Patcher and the Wiki Information, as well as when you might want to use one versus the other, even though they technically achieve the same thing. There's some differences there. And then I'll show you some examples in my mods code of how I use them. So let's go ahead and switch over to the wiki page so we can get started. So this is the modding game state queries page. So a game state query is basically when the game checks what's happened against basically an equation that you set up, and if it's true, it does one thing. If it's false, it does another. But you set it up in this when statement or condition statement format to be checked. Alternatively, you can do a actual query, but primarily it'll be through condition or when statements. So you can see right here they have an example of how a condition statement is set up. It's condition within the quotes, a colon, and then your conditional query. And for a when statement, we'll go over to the Content Patcher. It's going to say when. Let me go down here. Yes, it'll say when, in quotes, a colon, and then it's going to have a set of curly brackets. And your when query is going to go inside your curly brackets. So it's going to look different in the code, but you are achieving similar things. So they actually, on the wiki, they explain right here where you might want to do one versus the other, this section right here that says queries versus Content Patcher conditions. So we're going to go through this. So I'm just going to read this because they've put it in the best way I would be able to explain it. They've explained it better. So for a when condition, they're highly optimized and cached. So a lot of patches can check the same condition without performance. And then the resulting change is written once. So there's going to be no performance impact after the edit, and then it's just plain data. However, if it's something that's reloaded when patches are added and removed, it could affect performance if it changes frequently, such as reloading a map or indoor-outdoor NPC appearance. Whereas a game state query, which is going to be your condition statement, doesn't cache, so it's going to affect performance when it's checked frequently. So, for example, 1,000 game state queries checked on each update tick will basically slow down your game. Whereas a game state query is going to be faster when the conditions are checked rarely, and doing so avoids reloading your texture map. So basically things that is going to be checked a lot. So if you're doing like a rainy day sprite, which is going to be checked and then pretty much every day for the weather, and then change to sprite if they're wearing like Father Joseph wears his raincoat when he's outside and it's raining. And I have that as a update on location change, so every time he changes location, it's checked, and he puts his coat on if he's outside. That is when you want to use a when condition because it's checked a lot and things change when it's checked. versus a condition statement, which just needs to be checked once and then applied afterwards. So it can just be checked on the day and then apply. An example of this will be my goose that I've added to game. I've added 2 geese to the game, and one of them has an injured wing. And when you first get to Pelican Town, is basically in with the wildlife rehabilitation people, and then she's brought back after she's healed. So I have a condition where I have 2, where at the beginning of the game she's not there, and then at the game day 28, she's put in Jacob's barn. Jacob is the vet from East Scarp, and he's watching after her because she's going to be put in a pen for observation to make sure she's ready to go back in the wild for a couple weeks. Watching her, make sure she's eating, drinking, wildling, okay, all that stuff that a veterinarian would look for to make sure an animal's okay. And then on game day 48, she goes back in the wild, and her regular schedule that you see from that point on resumes. Those are, has this day passed? Okay. And that's it. One change, one time, one check. That is when I have used a conditional statement. So we'll go back over some more examples later. But we're going to go down through how this usually works. On, like I said, on a condition, you want the quotes, you put the word condition, you then have a colon and a space, and you have your condition key as well as what happens. So for my date range, if you look here on the wiki, it gives you the condition, and then anything inside of the carets is data you fill in. So for days played, for example, that I was just talking about, it's days played, and then a min or a max. There is no, like if you don't have a max, it's unlimited. But you could put a max in there if you want. But I just put days played 28, and that was my condition. If you do a range, for example, date range between spring 28 of year 1 and winter 5 of year 3 is what you would fill in there. You can do your season. Is season spring? I've done this with Howie and Louie. If the season is summer or fall, they're present. If the season is winter or spring, then they've gone back home. Those I did with conditions because it just needs to be checked basically once a season, so it's not going to drastically impact anything, and there's no frequent asset changes or anything there. Is it the current event with Howie's glasses? I used this one. So is event Howie, I think it's Howie Heart Event 8. It shows his glasses during the event. Has the event been seen is also one I do with a conditional statement because it just needs to be pretty much checked. Has the event been seen? Then this applies afterwards. There's all sorts of things here that you can use depending on what you want to do. For example, is it the day of the green rain? Is green rain day? Are you in multiplayer? There's a condition for that. Are you on Ginger Island during the summer? You could do location season, mountain summer. Pretty much you tell it you're looking at the location season event condition, and then you fill in which location and which season. Whether is it location during a certain weather, or you can, I believe, weather ID in the given location. I don't necessarily know if you need the location part of that. You could just do is weather rain. But for weather, I actually use when statements because the weather is something, when I use it, that I reference frequently. Like, for example, my raincoat analogy. You can do player info in progress. There's all sorts of things. Do you have a crafting recipe? Do you have a cooking recipe? Player has mail. I use the player has mail frequently because when I do that, I use it for setting up events, setting up quests. So condition player has mail. Player, you can choose current is usually what I put there because I'm referencing the person playing in the time. Mail ID is going to be your mail. And then type, which they've given you this handy chart. I usually use it as has the player received the mail. However, you can say is the player expected to receive the mail, which would be tomorrow. Or is the mail in the box but not read yet, would be your mailbox. Is the mail any of these, which would be where you would use any. So that is one I frequently use on a condition statement. And there's even a whole section on relationship status for your farmer. Does the player have a pet? Does the player have a relationship with a particular NPC? Is it one of these relationships? For example, if you are dating, like you've given somebody the bouquet, but you have not given them the marriage pendant, that would be dating. If you're engaged, but you have not had the wedding event, things like that is what this all describes, and they've given you a full chart. So you would do player current, your NPC, so which NPC this applies to, and then type would be one of these right here in this chart. You can even randomize or do things that are items. Basically, if you can think about it, there's probably something in one of these charts that will allow you to do it. So I would plan out what you want to happen, figure out if it's going to affect how frequently something is updated, and then based on that, choose either your condition or your when. And then if it's a condition, you can just go down this chart. If you are using a when statement instead, so if it's going to be something that's going to change your texture frequently or be referenced frequently, more than once or twice, and then something that's going to be referenced regularly, that's when we use the when statement. Content Patcher's documentation and author's guide explains all of that. So if you go to Content Patcher and you go to the, I believe it's the author token guide, so it's authorguide/tokens.md, that is all explained here. So these are things that are going to update a lot, change a texture, change a map, where you need to basically make sure it doesn't slow down the play of the game when things are loading. So for this, there's a list of things you can use, and you can use them in combination together as we see up here in this example. So you would use, if you want it to be season of year 1, you would use your season, set your season, put a comma at the end, and put your year 1. So the way this looks is you have your quotes, you have when inside the quotes, then a colon, then you're going to have your open and close curly bracket. Remember, you want to open and close. They come in pairs. Next, you're going to do your when, your key is the word I want. You want to put your key, and then you'll do what is happening, what the data you fill in. So in this example, the keys are season and year, and those go in the quotes, colon, and then you have a second set of quotes that has the contained data. So spring, comma, summer. You could do just spring, just summer. You could do basically spring and fall for whatever combination you need to happen there. And then you can choose your year. And each of these, they call these tokens. So basically, this is what I was calling a key or your condition. Is it one of these? And then you have, in the documentation, they have the values that you can fill in and whether or not it needs to be a specific string or a specific, for example, the day event. They've given you all the possible event options. And there's even if you have a custom festival, how to do that, where to go, day of week, number of days played, season. You can do a time range. For Shep, who is Jackie's service dog, I have a working sprite and an off-duty sprite, which changes whether or not he's wearing his service vest. I have done that with a when statement using the time and the range, and I'll show you that in a minute. Weather, like I was talking about for the rain jacket, I have done with the weather set to rain, and I have an update key, which we'll go over in a minute. You have options for luck if you've seen a conversation topic, recipes, has flag, which is usually when I use has flag, I use a letter ID. Have I set the letter ID to the player? And if so, this is what happens. If you've read a letter, if you've seen the event, in which case you would do has seen event, and then you would do the colon, and then in the second set of quotes, you put your event ID. So there's all of these. And then if you need to set an update key, I think it's at the end here. So you can just go through and find what you need and follow and set it up correctly. I'm just going to search. You have to go to the update page. So the links are here. So if you need to reference it, you can find the link update rate, which is what I'm talking about. So you would set your update key, just like it says here. So you have your when statement, you have your update, colon, and if you put it on day start, it's going to load at the start of the day when your day loads up. If you do on location change, like I did with the rain jacket, that's going to be every time you change location. You can do on time change, but it can slow things down. So if you can figure out a way to do what you need without using the time change, then we recommend using on location or day start if possible. So that is something useful that you'll see in my code. So I'm going to go ahead and show you some examples in my code. I've got a couple different files pulled up. The first one I wanted to do is has flag, and this is I set this flag in the event based off of if you chose to adopt a dog or a cat, and not you the farmer, but if you chose to encourage Father Joseph to adopt either a dog or a cat. So if you told him, I think you should get a dog, then it sets this Reggie the dog flag. If you chose, I think you should get a cat, then it shows the Reggie the cat flag. And this is going to affect your map patch. So if you say dog, then he puts a dog house by his house. And if you say, I think you should have a cat, then he makes like a little play area for the cat in front of his house. And this is the map patch. So I've basically said we're going to add this location based on if this flag is used. So you can see that I have done the when, which I might change that to a location condition, come to think of it. But this has worked, and it hasn't slowed anything down, which is why I did it this way, is I didn't want the patch to potentially affect the load rate. So when has flag Reggie the dog is when this patch is applied. And then the patch for my cat tree has become when has flag Reggie the cat. One example of something that is checked frequently on map patches is for Mapleview Park. If you notice, I have put the sky behind the rest of the map. And I have down here set, there it is, my sky patch. So this is something that is checked, update on the start of every day, is it checks what is the weather. And my when statement says if it is between this time, then it's going to check the weather. And this is the token for the weather. So it's going to find my rain sky or my sun sky or my snowy sky. I think I have one for green rain. And it's going to match the weather. And I have it in my map patches. I have the file actually saved. Let me show you. If I go to Assets, Maps, Sky Patches, you can see that I've named it by rain, by snow, by storm, and then I have made a map patch of that that has that sky in there. So that it is then going to overlay the correct sky based on the weather, which it checks at the beginning of every day. So it's saying, does the weather match what the game says the weather is going to be for that day? So that is an example of when I've used a when on a location to do map patches. And if you look at this, for Jackie, this is her cane. So if you've seen her 2-heart event, she has tripped on the stairs and twisted her knee. And Dr. Harvey says, I want you to walk with a cane for a while. And then later, there's going to be an event at about 6-heart level where Dr. Harvey has said, I think you've healed enough. You don't need the cane anymore. And then she can walk without the cane. So what this does is this is an example where I have said, after you've seen her 2-heart event, I want to overlay the cane onto Jackie's sprite. And this is something you can do. I'm going to go back to her so you can see what an overlay looks like. Jackie. Here's her cane. So this, as you can see, this is not a full sprite. This is literally just adding the cane. So her hand goes there, her feet are there, and she is just holding the cane for the course of this. So when you say patch mode overlay, it basically adds a layer on top of the existing sprite. And this way too, when I do seasonal outfits, I don't have to do 4 or more seasonal outfits, more if I do festivals. I just have the one overlay. It's going to overlay over whichever outfit she happens to be wearing. And you can do this when to has seen event. And if you need it to say true or false, you would do the straight / character. So has seen event, : and you can put anything here. Is this true or false? So you put the key or the condition that you want to check, a : this straight character contains an equal sign, and then the ID of the thing you are checking. In this case, it is my event ID. You then close your quotes, add a : and you have either true or false. And if you're doing more than one, you will need a comma. So in this case, I am checking, is one true and the other false? And during that time frame in which the 2 hearts has been seen, but the 6 heart has not been seen, so 6 heart false, it will overlay the cane. So that is a bit more advanced, but you can make things like that happen based on what you need. You just have to get a little creative about it sometimes, in which case assigning the true false value instead of just straight up, has this been seen? Another frequent place that you use, not a when statement, but a condition statement in this case, this is an example of when I use a condition statement because it's only checked once, is when you're sending letters. I've used a condition because it only needs to be checked once. Has this been happened? Then after that has happened, this applies. So example, season summer, year 2, Maple Park opens. So start of season, year 2, add this action. And I think I'm going to I may do another video on actions. I haven't decided yet. But that is all in the, yeah, we'll make a whole video on trigger actions. We'll do that in a separate video. Let's just keep this focused to conditions. So basically we'll do a whole new video on what the action actually does. We'll do that separately. But for the purposes of this, we're looking at the condition statement. So we've done, in the quotes, we've done condition, the colon, and then what that condition is. You'll notice in this case in conditions, it's all in the same set of quotes, but separated by a comma. So in this case, summer, comma, also year 2. So I've done 2 conditions there separated by comma. If we go down, after you've seen Louie's 10 heart letter, then you get sent a recipe for chocolate chip cookies. Strawberry chip cookies. So this is the condition, and then my key or the condition is the player has seen events. Player is current, so that is the person currently playing. You could also do host, so if you're on multiplayer, then has the host seen this. I personally, I felt like for the things I'm doing, I just wanted to be keyed to the current player. So then if the current player has seen, and then this is my event ID. So when they have seen this, then the action takes place. You can do a condition on friendship points. So a condition where after you've reached so many friendship points, the thing happens. And again, condition statements are things that I think about it as, does the thing only need to be checked once or twice and then everything applies after? Or is it something that will frequently be need to check? And if it's frequently, then I go to a when statement. So that is the basics of a condition. I know it's a little bit harder to understand because it applies in different places and it's not like setting up a schedule where the whole thing is pretty linear. But I hope the information has helped. And until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day.